So welcome to the CEO series on CloudTimes. My name is Martin Tantow and I'm with Gaurav Dhillon today, CEO and co-founder of SnapLogic. Hi.
Pleasure to meet you, Martin. How are
Good
you?
to meet you.
Pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about SnapLogic and the cloud integration space.
Fascinating space. So SnapLogic is a company that helps large businesses connect their on-premise software to the new cloud applications that they're bringing in. Very much succinctly, that's what we do. And very typically, enterprises these days are examining the cloud with the view to cost saving, business agility. I think the best line I've heard about that is that if you're an enterprise, you want to have a model where you're no longer an operator of gear. You don't worry about air conditioning and cooling of your computers. You really worry about capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, as companies start using cloud to create capabilities, SnapLogic connects the cloud to their on-premise software, which they almost always have in the enterprise.
Okay.
So that's our role, and therefore we do cloud integration. We integrate the cloud to on-premise.
Okay, understood. And you founded the company, I think?
Yes.
Right? You were an initial investor as well in the company?
Yes. So I came up with the idea from speaking to some friends that I was investing with, ended up on a board with Mark Andreessen, and he would always talk about the cloud and the business internet, and I thought to myself, golly, somebody should connect that.
Yeah.
And it sounds like if people, and he was right, it's not just using a browser to buy books. At the time, we didn't have movies, this is 2006, but people use the cloud to balance their books. And whether they use Workday or some of the SAP by design stuff and others, it's pretty clear to me that would need a new wave of integration technology designed for the cloud. So I kind of, came up with the idea, wrote the check, assembled a group of people, and got them going, and then joined as CEO about 18 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And today you have Andreessen Horowitz as one of the main investors, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm thinking about cloud integration, I'm thinking a lot about APIs as well.
True.
So
True.
How important? What's the role of the API within SnapLogic? Can you maybe explain our listeners a little bit how that connects together?
Sure. So actually, what we are able to do with the cloud is something that is, in a sense, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Modern companies, like Salesforce, are no longer just sending files around. People are not accessing them just by dumb terminal strokes. They have an API. So someone like a Salesforce has an API, a great API that's gone from being what it was to improving over time, and even RESTful, kind of the more modern style of architecture that we use in the World Wide Web. So now that API becomes a very good way for us to be able to connect Salesforce, which is typically heavily customized in a business scenario, with other kinds of systems. So the role of the API really is to provide a window or to provide a language, a shared interface with which to have a conversation. If you and I speak English, that doesn't mean we have a conversation. We have to have a discussion. We have to say, show me this, or what about this, or what about that? In fact, what we're just doing. So when we integrate things together, we're using the APIs in the same way that we use a language that we both share and understand to be able to have a conversation. So these applications now have conversations by using SnapLogic to connect.
Yeah. So, but is it fair to say that SnapLogic is, in comparison to companies that use APIs like you mentioned Salesforce, more for legacy systems, or larger enterprise that actually need to use SnapLogic?
More for the larger businesses.
Okay.
And here's why. The fact is, what we've done is we have wrapped Salesforce in something we call a Snap. It's a standardized container for moving information around. And it's very analogous to using a standardized shipping container to move equipment or goods. We put it on a boat, you put it on a train, you put it on a truck. It's the same standardized container. It's revolutionized the world of transportation. We believe that our standardized containers for moving information around, called snaps, are going to revolutionize the way people integrate cloud into the enterprise.
Okay.
Right? So what we see happening in that role would be that a person using Salesforce would not be using the Salesforce API, rather they would be insulated from the Salesforce API, and they'd be using a Snap and a visual paradigm, not have to write any code, no coding needed, and drag and drop and sort of use Visio, sort of flowchart diagramming type of way of connecting Salesforce to various on-premise applications, where we do the same thing. So we have a Snap for Salesforce, for example.
Right. Okay.
We have a Snap for other applications like Oracle eBusiness. And now you have a hub and spoke where you can connect A to B, and through the standardized container, you can therefore also connect C, D, E, F, and G.
Right. So talking about the Snap Store, explain a little bit how this is kind of a marketplace. Is it? Can I imagine a Snap Store something like an app store on iPhone, or
exactly?
No?
Exactly. So so the inspiration is absolutely the iPhone.
Yeah.
You know, we sort of from experience of being in the industry, we cracked the code on how to have a standardized container, how to move things around, excuse me, in the enterprise in a standardized manner. So you could hook up a cloud application to a legacy application using the same type of interface. So that was a real breakthrough. You know, we feel a scientific breakthrough really, because that's really hard to do. Independent of applications, independent of programming languages, that's a big deal. But then, as we started to go to market, you know, from being in integration for decades, I really felt that in the area of the cloud, there's going to be so many applications, right? If you go to Dreamforce, there's a floor, a whole Moscone Center floor, full of applications that most enterprises are likely to encounter several of. So how do you connect that? And then the sort of the penny drop, which is the way to do that, is to open up what we had used to build our own connectors, this Snap concept, to others. So you can build a Snap if you want, and you know somebody else can build a Snap if they want, and then that Snap can be sold on the Snap Store, very similar to how you would have an application in the App Store. But this is a connection. It's not an application. It's a connector to, say, there are accounting systems that are very popular, you know, maybe in England, right? There's in the UK, there's certain legacy accounting systems like Sage or whatever. Now, somebody who has expertise in Sage can build a Sage accounting Snap, put it in the Snap Store, and it's done.
So what's the price range of Snaps?
It varies by effort. So what we give as a rule of thumb to our Snap developers, we give them just a basic rule of thumb, which is, look, if it took you 100 units of work to build it, you should price it at 50 units, because then you're creating value for everybody who purchases it.
So you're taking away the man hours and kind
basically
of rule of thumb there.
But even bigger, while connectors can be built, and some of them are easier to build these days, maintaining them is a royal thing. You know, I don't know if you remember, but when Twitter changed this API, like half the internet was up in flames. And they told everybody they're going to change the API. Yeah. They have to change the API, but then you have to remember to keep that up to date. And that's Twitter, the most modern of all modern things. God help, you know, Lord help you if you have like legacy applications and other kinds of things, and how would you deal with that? Or if you want to swap out applications. See, what SnapLogic is giving you as a professional, as a practitioner of IT, or as a line of business pro, is the ability to choose applications in the future without having to go through a massive reconstruction, remodeling on your enterprise.
Yeah.
You know, you can use the Snap concept to be able to add other applications into the portfolio, and that is a huge option value.
And I understand you're somehow a independent provider of integration as a service, right?
Yeah.
We had some recent acquisition from Boomi, etc., that in the end cannot provide that independence now, at least anymore, right?
Exactly.
So are you gonna play the Switzerland in the future as well?
Yes.
Or is that not gonna change for you if somebody's gonna buy you?
Well, we want to play Switzerland. You know, I've had the pleasure of building and taking a company public. I built Informatica out of my garage, took it public, was CEO for 12 years. So I've sort of seen the movie before, and I very much like to take this into a public market as a company. That would be what our plan is, to go do that. And that is so valuable, because every computing generation needs Switzerland. You know, in a client-server era, you needed Switzerland. In the cloud era, you need Switzerland. So that is our aspiration and our goal here, to build that company, and knock on wood, we're doing the right things.
Yeah, no, certainly. What's your differentiation to another integration marketplace like Pervasive Galaxy, for example? Can you explain all of that?
Yes. So, you know, anybody can have a marketplace. You know, we could go to a place where somebody could write a few lines of code and sling them out and say, oh gosh, if you want to have this particular kind of thing, you'd buy it from the marketplace. A marketplace has no quality control. A marketplace does not have any support system. But an app store, you know, if you look at the Apple App Store, there's first a number of certification steps that go on. Someone has to look at the code and certify that this actually works well, it doesn't misbehave. You have to have the apparatus to sandbox, as Apple calls it. The snap has to live, has to float. You know, it has to sort of float in this broth, or it has to plug in to the operating system, which then becomes sort of SnapLogic's technologies, the integration cloud, integration operating system, into which these snaps snap in and then they function in the same way as if we had built them or whatever. And that is a very different proposition through technology, through quality assurance and support than having a marketplace. Because if the architecture isn't there, then you're not really getting a app store effect. What you're getting really is potentially some consultative value add for somebody who's a practitioner. It's a very different thing.
Understand, okay. We're covering big data quite a bit on CloudTimes as well.
Yes.
How are you addressing the, say, big data challenge, and where does Hadoop, for example, come into that?
Big data is an opportunity. You know, it's a huge opportunity. It's to us, it comes in a number of ways. First of all, people need to collect data from the Internet of Things. Very typically, we see data coming into Hadoop today, although I believe it'll be more commonplace that Hadoop is used for like other kinds of data. But today, people use Hadoop when they have Internet data. Things coming from the exhaust of configuration files or video streaming or devices or what have you. That gets stored in a certain place. So gathering that information is an opportunity for SnapLogic, because SnapLogic has a web architecture that works exactly the way the World Wide Web and Hadoop work, with divide and conquer kind of approach, which is a less fancy term for MapReduce. Then the opportunity on the other end is to provide big data services where business users who want to access Hadoop typically want to get an aggregated view of data. If you're gathering data from a streaming device, or if you're in the media business and you want to see how people are using your streaming, you aggregate that data down, and you don't need to see every second of how somebody's using your stuff. You want to know the highs and the lows, and you want to know the averages, and therefore you may not need the petabytes of data. As a business user, you just want to see, is streaming quality degrade on Friday nights, because we want to make sure that our customers are having a high level of satisfaction with the service. And in that case, cascading the data from Hadoop through our snaps. We have snaps for Hive and HDFS, which we built because we saw the need for this. Knock on wood, people love those. Cascading the data down towards places where data analyst or somebody who's a data practitioner, whether they're using statistics or business intelligence tool, and giving them a subset of that data in an aggregated manner is a huge opportunity for SnapLogic, because big data services, we think, are going to be a big deal.
So what's next? Is that next?
It's going to keep us busy for a while. So for us, happily, we live in a time where more and more things are going to the cloud, and the enterprise is starting to pay attention. I was just having lunch with somebody who said, these days in the enterprise, it's not so much as, oh, the cloud is risky. It's these days it's much more, if we don't do the cloud, we're going to be left behind. So it's entering that tornado, to use an overused term in Silicon Valley, but the cloud is in the tornado in the enterprise. And so we see just enormous opportunity sticking to our knitting, doing what we do, being better at it, adding more snaps, processing more information faster, providing more complex, more sophisticated kind of ways of connecting things together, and serving needs, whether they're coming from business data or big data. It's all the same to us. Easy to do and scales like the web.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very exciting, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good meeting you.
Pleasure meeting you as well.